and navigating and creating the new earth that we're just stepping into. He's going to talk about freedom and yeah, sovereignty. So with that, Frank, welcome to the festival. You have the whole floor.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. What's up, Emergence? Can I see everybody give me some like spirit fingers and some love? Awesome. Awesome. Wow, it's been so exciting just to see all the engagement and all of the messages that these powerful speakers have brought to us. And I'm just so excited for my own personal takeaways. I'm excited for all of you guys, and I hope you have your own personal takeaways that are definitely in your notebooks and going to be implemented in your life. And really in that, with that awareness, I want to kind of set an intention for this time together. I think that all of us have been exposed to a lot of different perspectives, different modalities, different techniques, and things that we're going to take home and bring into our lives and integrate. So that's really a key part of really agency as it relates to sovereignty and choosing kind of how we are going to show up in the world. So I think for this session, what I want to do is I'm going to lead us through a little bit of a meditation. I'm going to do a collective invocation for all of us. And then I'm going to start talking about sovereignty and embodiment and what embodying sovereignty has really meant for me. Throughout this time, I'm going to keep the chat open. There will be numerous times I'll ask for perspectives or things that you guys feel open or called to share. And then I'll just respond. And if it's in flow, I can kind of incorporate those comments and speak to some of those things, perhaps examples or things that might make points more clear or takeaways more helpful. Yeah, so it's really helpful. I've kind of written this with the intention that everyone has something to write with, as I'm sure most everyone does. And I really want this to be something that you can take away as an assessment of kind of where you're at and what you want to do and what kind of steps you can take to get there from here. So if that sounds good, can I get everybody to do spirit fingers again? Yeah, awesome. Wow. Thank you, Emergence. Thank you, Chelsea. Thank you, Jessica. Ashtahe to everybody. Inunachek. So powerful, so powerful. I love this container, guys. Thank you so much. Okay, so just a brief introduction. Chelsea mentioned I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a motivational speaker, I'm a poet, spoken word, alchemist, magician, you know, all of these beautiful new age careers that all of us are really stepping into in the new earth. And most recently, I've established a community center. It's a Reiki healing center and also kind of sound meditation and sound healing, as well as yoga, like a yoga center and qigong in Maui, in Paia. If you guys are in or on Maui or on the Hawaiian Islands and you guys make it over there, please come check me out. If you've ever been to Paia, it is an incredibly special place. My grandfather was born and raised on Maui, so I'm really touching into some ancestral roots. But the intention really there was to be able to authentically bridge the native Hawaiian culture, of which I'm a part of, to kind of the new age spirituality and the seekers that are present on the island. And to do that in a way that was integrated, respectful, and yet also evolutionary. Because as wisdom keepers of old traditions, as you guys may know, they're usually pretty strict. Like the way is the way. And so right now, I think collectively the earth is trying to understand and humanity is trying to understand how are we incorporating ancient wisdom while respecting the tradition but evolving it to be more applicable to current times, and taking that with, you know, the level of integrity and the level of respect that it deserves, but then also evolving it, which is tricky. It's very tricky. So that's been the mission, and it's been something that I know is a part of my soul's purpose here on this earth, my dharma, or in Hawaiian we would say my kuleana, my responsibility to do on this planet. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you so much again for having me. And I feel good about the intention we've set. So I'm going to lead us. Actually, if everyone has the space and you just want to like maybe shake it out a little bit, just get your juices flowing. Yeah, yeah, there it is. Melanie, yeah, big time. Cool. Get the chi flowing, right? Like, yeah, awesome. Awesome. Yes, yes, yes. As you guys probably aware, that's a very normal qigong warm up. It really kind of gets the meridians open and starts the process of that fluid being able to help channel qi through the body. So with that, I want to just take us into a pretty quick meditation and visualization that really pertains to sovereignty and agency. So feel free to close your eyes. You don't have to, but you can. So I want us to really envision a sphere, and the sphere can be silver or silver white, and it's just centered in the middle of our chests. So really between the heart and the solar plexus, but maybe the size of, your two fists, but have that sphere in the middle of your chest and really put your intention into recognizing what's going on there. What's going on in your middle dantian, what's going on in the piko in Hawaiian, what's going on inside of your chest cavity. And with that, I want us to just be aware that we can control this sphere, and we're gonna do a number of things with this. The first thing we're gonna do is we're just gonna slowly start to lower that sphere into the sacral bowl and through the chakras down to the root. And just kind of observe slowly as that descends, kind of as like an elevator down your spine, the difference in the awareness of those points in your body. And finally, when it's at the base of your spine, you're going to just drop it down through your feet and then down into the earth, down through the rock, through the clay, down through the slate, and into the center of the earth. And just observe how held we really are. Feel the support of Mother Earth, the great recycler, the great transmuter, the great mother. And never underestimate how expansive that support truly is. Now with your breath, just slowly drawing it in, bring that sphere back up from the center of the earth, slowly back up through the rock, through the mud, through the clay, through the soil, through your feet, and back into the center of our chests. And now I want us to bring that sphere that has touched the center of the earth up through our hearts, through our throats, through our third eye, again, sensing kind of the difference in the awareness when you're focusing on moving this sphere as it is still in the body. Then bring it up to our crown, and we're going to take it just outside of our head. And here, depending on whatever star or planet you feel called to connect to at this very moment, I want you to send that sphere to that planet, to that star system, through space, through the void eternal. Maybe you've landed on Venus, maybe you've landed on the sun, maybe you went to the Pleiades. Wherever you went with that sphere, really feel the energy of that celestial wisdom. Let it saturate that sphere, this father sky, this intuition of consciousness that is star-seated. And slowly, as that begins to feel saturated, you can start to bring that ball away from the planet, away from the star system, through space, back down through our atmosphere, and back down to right above our crowns. And once that's above our crown, we're just going to slowly breathe that in through the crown, down through the third eye, through the throat, and back into our chest. Now, holding that vision of that sphere that's touched the middle of the earth, the center of the earth, the great mother, and touched celestial consciousness, the father energy, the sky. Just envision this sphere expanding to become as wide as your chest. See it pulsating with your breath. And now expand it further so that it actually incorporates all of your head and all of your pelvis, so that it's really the size of your upper body. And then expand that sphere to basically the level of your aura, where you see that. And just notice that the earth energy and the sky energy, the celestial energy, is swirling here. Those awarenesses are present with us. And we exist within this sphere. And as you're seeing this sphere, I want you to imagine a column of light that is just as wide as the sphere. That column of light extends all the way to that star system or that planet that you envisioned, and all the way down to the center of the earth. And just breathe in that connection. And as we're all sitting with that and just feeling that, I want to speak to what that really indicates. We are all conduits and channels. We are all channels of consciousness and light. What we take from our knowledge, our wisdom, the celestial inspiration, and how we ground that with our vision, with our manifestation, has to do with how are we integrating that celestial consciousness into the earth plane reality. And this is always available to you. There is a column that you are consistently channeling, whether or not you know it. The more we embody and understand the vastness of what this channel really is, the more we understand our capacitance to bring new consciousness onto the earth, the more embodied our creation becomes. And with that, everyone can open their eyes and just breathe into their body. Move your fingers if you want. Just slowly rotate your neck. And that visualization is something that I do pretty often, at least once every couple weeks. And really, I just take that time for myself to remind myself that as we are the highest form of nature. I mean, perhaps that's an argument and that is subjective, but we are the highest technology in nature. And just like a tree photosynthesizes and then blossoms flowers and grows, we too take the sun's light, we take the celestial consciousness, and we create, and we ourselves are made into form. And we're just a part of nature, and all of us are connected very deeply in that way, because we are all actually Mother Gaia, and we are all actually Father Sky. With that, and in the spirit of kind of understanding that all of us are unique capacitors for channeling light into consciousness, into manifestation, I just want to read a very quick collective invocation. And I pray every day. I make huge prayers for humanity. I make huge prayers for community, huge prayers for people that I love, for myself. I have spent so much time really understanding that the language that we vocalize creates our reality, without a doubt. And the more we use that to alchemize what we create, the more palpable the changes in our environments become. Prayers are so important, and consciousness doesn't, in my opinion, really want to be grabbed. Manifestation doesn't really want to be grabbed. It can be, and it can be forced, and it can be tried, and you can try really hard for that. But really, consciousness just needs to be observed. It just wants to be touched. And you can just touch it when you enunciate, and you can just allow it to be observed. And then that probability can manifest. So indomitable and unfathomable, will of grace and love, please reveal to us, your loyal servants, our highest paths, inspiring our highest good. Let us taste and savor the deepest fulfillment by embarking on our spirit's mission. Let us inhale the fragrance of our own spirit while we flourish in eudaimonia. Let us feel the pleasure and the presence that is our birthright in this manifest lifetime. Let us see our highest reflection, our most profound creation, and our most impactful forms of service. Let us hear the song of our authenticity and deepest integrity. Divine reality being palatable and palpable to everything except our senses. Thank you for your profound wisdom you reveal. For we know not, we know nothing, but the formlessness of the mystery, the majesty of divine flow, the emanations from our vibration that transmute alchemically into our manifestations, like clouds moving through shapes and transfigurations, and in sensing and assembling our paths ahead, grant us the courage to step into our intuition and our power and take action to claim that which is already ours. And so it is. So it is. Aho. Yeah. Thank you guys for letting me open the space that way and set the vibration of this container. Really appreciate that. And I see in the chat, you know, there are a few comments I'll respond to. I can definitely put some of the words into the chat for people to review. Yeah, prayers are huge. Prayers are huge. So thank you again, everybody. And so I want to get into the workshop portion of this. Again, this is meant to be personal. It's meant to be something that you guys take away. And I think a lot of times in these circles, there sometimes can be words that we throw around. I know that I do it sometimes too, and it's not really touched on or not really defined. And so I want to really break it down for all of us to really review for ourselves and to take into consideration and assess, you know, with an honest eye where we're at, and really take stock of how fulfilled we are, how much we really feel like our dreams are manifesting. And there's no shame in this. Life is the process, and we're all continuing to grow and evolve. And yet it's so important to get an honest barometer that's not self-delusional and is not, you know, a small reflection from someone that knows only one part of you. It's really important to be honest with yourself. And I know that I've had to go through a lot of change and be really honest with myself throughout a lot of what happened for me personally last year. And that really led me to be able to really conceptualize the frameworks that we're going to go through. Okay. If everybody's feeling good, can we get some snaps in the air? Cool. All right. I'm glad to see all you guys. Thank you. Thank you. This Zoom format is a lot of fun. Okay. So I want to just start with really defining kind of two words. The first is sovereignty, and the second is embodiment. And I want you guys to write down those two words. And if something's coming to mind for sovereignty, write that down. Write that down for yourself. What does sovereignty mean to you? Right? And if some of you guys feel called to share this in the chat, please do so. And when you've finished that sentence or two about sovereignty, I want you to do the same thing for embodiment. What does embodiment mean? What does it mean for you? Is that different than what it may mean for everyone else? Right? We're all unique expressions of God. So maybe that's different. Yeah, Chelsea's saying embodiment, really wisdom in the body. Yeah. So really taking the time for those first couple sentences to just finish them out. Yeah, Amani is saying, I control my destiny, right? Sovereignty. I have control over my destiny. Yeah, Asana, self-governance, that's huge. And that's exactly where I'm going to take that too. Jessica, sovereignty, taking full and complete ownership over choices and its impact. Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you guys for sharing that. So yeah, from my perspective, and I don't pretend to know anything. I actually don't know anything. That's where I start. That's where I start pretty much every day. If you assume, if you think that you know, then your curiosity and your zazen, your beginner's mind, it shuts off, right? So start with knowing that we don't know everything, and always be humble in your perspective, right? So for me, sovereignty is really that supreme power. It is the innate supreme power of authority over ourselves and what we are experiencing. It is also self-governance, right? I think that's really important, because you're saying, I am a sovereign being, therefore I am choosing how I will show up, what I will do, what I believe, what I will manifest. So sovereignty is really important, because then we get into agency, and agency is that choice, that free will, right? We are agents with sovereign birthright powers to choose our manifest destiny and choose how we show up in the world. I think the most important piece of sovereignty's relation to agency is that there are a lot of places that we may find ourselves that we've chosen for ourselves that then test us, and they show us, what will you choose? How are you going to act? What will the impact be on your life, on your relationships, on your wealth, right? And agency is so intimately tied to sovereignty, because the effect of our agency is the world that we create. What we choose with our free will and our sovereignty creates everything around us. Every relationship, friendship, familial, community, every single reflection from any person or situation is purely your own making, right? And so that is really indicative of where our agency is. And wow, what power, right? Like, this is so inspiring. We have all the power to choose to create anything we want in this life, right? Every single action is like a brushstroke on a painting. You can paint over some things, but it might look messy. We all make mistakes, right? What's the masterpiece that I am painting with my life via my choices? And that's really what I want everyone to really sit with, in terms of why choice and free will and agency is so intimately tied to sovereignty, because everyone's sovereign, and yet we're all painting a different picture. And that's perfectly exactly what's supposed to happen. And you are all exactly perfect as you are. And yet we have that intention. We have that intentionality that we can paint a masterpiece. Or maybe we feel like Jackson Pollock. It's up to you, right? Okay. Beautiful. So it's impossible to learn what you think you already know. Yes. Embodiment, the step after knowledge, right? Into wisdom. Thanks, Jessica. right? And then into full body integration. And Jess, thanks for the metaphor. Yeah, really painting our lives with brushstrokes. Okay, so that's sovereignty and agency. And now I want to go into embodiment. And I know that you guys have written some things. If you feel a call to share, please write it in the chat. Embodiment, right? It's the representation, really, or the expression in the physical form, right? Or in the tangible form. When someone is, super practiced in some form of knowledge and they've embodied that knowledge, that looks like remembering, right? That's one thing for me. It's like learning is actually remembering. If you can't remember it, how are you going to integrate it, right? How are you going to actually be it? How are people going to feel that you are doing it, right? They're only going to be able to feel it if you've embodied it, and it's going to show up. It's going to show up in your body, whether you're taking good control of your health, whether, you're doing the meditation practices to keep your mind clear, whether you're really practicing observing your emotions without attaching and reacting. People can sense that equanimity, right? People can sense equanimity, and that becomes tangible and palpable. Okay, so I think there are a few key indicators that I want you guys to write down of embodiment. And that is, number one, consistency and reliability, right? How consistent am I? What are the people in my life able to count on me for? What will they know I can show up to do for them, right? And that kind of ties into reliability, right? So, but also consistency is, how am I going to show up to a situation? Am I going to be coming from the heart? Am I going to be coming from my ego? Am I going to try to integrate those two things? So really observe, just kind of write and understand where are you consistent? Take stock of that for yourself. The second indicator of embodiment is routines and daily practices. What are your routines? What are your daily practices? What are you taking the time to do and cultivate? Right? If our spirit is a garden, how much are we gardening? How much are we tilling the soil? What does that look like for each of us? Right? Healthy routine. Thank you, Narissa. It's just so important. And this is really a key indication of embodiment for me. The third is a little bit more abstract. It is also something that Aristotle coined, and that is really the virtuous ego. Right? When we're embodied, we know ourselves. We know our power. We're not afraid of how powerful we are. Right? The virtuous ego, however, does not overextend that. It doesn't go into arrogance. It doesn't go into self-gratification. Embodiment is knowing exactly who we are and being completely comfortable in our power and being completely intentional in how we use that power. That ties into what I believe is the ultimate surrender of the ego when you've surrendered into kind of your divine mission, and that is selflessness and altruism. What are you doing that's not for you, right? How are you helping humanity? How are you impacting your community? What are you doing to better the world, right? Because if we're not making that impact, if we're not inspiring people, or if we're not helping people, right? Are we going to feel fulfilled? So it's really something to sit with in terms of embodiment. The last piece is really mindfulness and discernment. So mindfulness, being really present, being really aware. If you're washing a dish, wash the dish. Don't be doing something else. If you are sitting in presence with someone you're listening to, Don't be thinking about responding, right? Active listening. Are we listening? Right? If we're doing something, being aware that we are doing it. And that is so, so key, because our brains are wired for the opposite. Our brains routinize and create habitual neural patterns that are consistently activated. When you're driving, your brain is completely engaged when you drive for the first time. You drive for the 10th, 15th, 20th time, the smallest portion of what was previously activated is being used. And this leads to a lot of lack of awareness of when we're doing certain things. So to really come into the mindfulness. And then discernment, right? Embodiment is about discernment, because if you've integrated wisdom and the whole world is your oyster, and you can paint whatever you want, you can create whatever you want, what will you choose? What path will you choose for yourself? How will you engage the world? And so I want, as a takeaway for these indicators, all you guys to just kind of be with that, sit with that, journal with that, you know, make sure to take an honest stock of what you got going on, and be able to say, yes, I want to be better in this. I want to be, you know, more consistent. I want people to know they can rely on me. I want people to, you know, have a good sense of me when I show up, because I'm so embodied in my presence. Right? And just take that away as a personal piece. Okay, so how did that feel? Does anyone have any responses? Is this kind of hitting home? Is this feeling like something that's useful for all of us to reflect on? We get some thumbs up. Beautiful. Beautiful. Great. Yeah, and I think there's just so much wisdom that we've been able to take away from this festival and all of these speakers. And it's like, what are we going to integrate, right? Like, what are we going to embody? What opportunities are we going to act on? Maybe you connected to someone either speaking or in a chat, and you know you have a relationship to develop. What intentionality are you going to put into that? What's your integration of the wisdom and how you're approaching that? Right? And there's so much co-collaboration potential here. There's so much within this container that we can really take away and really change our lives and show up for that for ourselves. Okay. So this is the second part of the journaling. And I want you guys to just write these down. So the first piece about really embodying sovereignty, right? We've talked about embodiment, we've talked about sovereignty, but how am I going to embody my sovereignty, right? If anyone has any ideas about that, please put it in the chat, because I think it's pretty unique to really embody sovereignty. There's a lot of meaning there. But I break it down into 6 sections, and if we can list that would be amazing. Thank you, Melanie, for putting the indicators of embodiment down. I really appreciate that. So basically, there are unconscious and conscious levels to each of these. The first is our beliefs. The second is our desires. The third are our actions. And the fourth is our intentions. Our intentions, right? So we have beliefs. We have to acknowledge that we have those beliefs. Some of them are conscious. Some of them are active. Some of them are unconscious, right? Some of them are limiting. Some of them are really expansive and super open. But we have to take ownership over our beliefs. And that means we have to take ownership over what we've been programmed to believe, societally, from our family, from our community, right? What have we taken away? What are our beliefs that we're not even aware of that we believe? Some people believe the earth is flat. Some people believe the earth is round. What does that mean? Right? Elizabeth saying embody sovereignty is actively stepping into presence in every situation and becoming the observer instead of the reactor. Thank you so much for that, Elizabeth. That's really beautiful. You know, I think it is so important because when you step into that, Jiddu Krishnamurti has a phrase. It's my favorite. It's one of my, he has a lot of amazing phrases. It's one of my favorite phrases. It's the highest form of intelligence is to observe without judgment. Right? And that awareness that we all know we have, where we're sitting beyond and we're really just, we're observing within what's going on within ourselves, what's going on with others, what's going on in our environment, and not judge it, accept it, see it, observe it. Thank you for that, Elizabeth. That's really great. Okay, so beliefs, right? That's the first piece. Second is desires. Man, it's like, here you are in your human body and you cannot avoid desire. It's you want to eat, you want to sleep, you want to make love, right? Like, we will have desire no matter what. And the reality is, how are we showing up to that desire, right? How are we integrating our response to desire? Richard Rudd, I hope you guys all got a chance to catch him. It was incredible, but he speaks about desire in the Gene Keys. And, you know, this is it's like, you know, if humans were to have been given a play-by-play or an instruction manual, be like, hey, like, you're going to have to go through this. You're going to have to understand for yourself how you respond to your desires and what that means for you. And, you know, with desire comes a lot of reflection, because, you know, our desires reveal a lot of different things about our consciousness, about, you know, how we're responding, not reacting, right? Are you reacting or are you responding to something? Are you observing it and then seeing it and then responding with agency, or are you reacting? And it's okay. If you're reacting, that's normal. It's meant to teach you. It's meant to be hard. Have compassion. Love yourself. Love yourself when you react. And then show up better next time, right? We're meant to be triggered. That's where the growth happens. Okay, so conscious and unconscious desires, similarly, journal on this. Think about this for you guys, for yourselves. Next is actions, right? What conscious actions am I taking? What unconscious actions am I taking? Right? And this has a lot to do with, I mean, every single thing, what you speak about, you know, level of honesty, integrity, how much equanimity you have, how much balance you have, right? And then acting from that place. And actions are a great, it's another mirror. Wow, I can't believe I did that. Yeah, you can. You can believe you did it, and you did. Now learn from it, right? Integrate that. Become embodied in that. So really think about your actions and take stock. Take stock, right? We're painting a picture here. We're painting a picture. Every single action, reaction, right? Paint a masterpiece, or be Jackson Pollock. Who knows? Whatever you want to do, right? But just be aware that you're doing it, right? Okay, and the last is intentions. And intentions are, you know, if you think about this, it's like, okay, I have a belief, that's where it starts. Then I have a desire, that's something that's affecting me. Then I act from that place. And then I can also act with intention, right? And so this kind of comes down to the full picture of embodying sovereignty to me. It's really owning your beliefs, your desires, your actions, and your intentions. And every single mirror that puts in front of you to look at yourself, to know yourself. And with that intentions, I mean, the power of focus, the power of envisioning, the power of feeling right? What it feels like to have already achieved that intention has a lot to do with how we manifest. But take that away. Take that away. What are my intentions, right? What am I going to focus on? What am I really envisioning? And be conscious, because your beliefs are tied into that. And then how you show up in action is tied to that. The two last pieces I just want to touch on really briefly, and I'm definitely going a little bit over than I had anticipated. The next two pieces in terms of embodiment are relationships and sexuality. Everyone has to deal with these. We are social organisms. It's unavoidable, with programmed procreative capabilities, right? Unavoidable. So relationships, these are key indicators of embodiment, right? Your family, your friends, your community, your partner, your partners, whichever it is, right? Relationships are everything. Take stock of the relationships in your life. Who's really important to you, right? Do they know that? Are you showing up for that? Right? Lastly, the journaling topic is really our sexuality, right? And sexuality comes so deeply. Sorry, I'm just looking at this chat. Clicked, okay, avoid all relationships and all sex. I'm deeply avoidant. Okay, Jennifer, that's one way to go. That's one way to go. Take stock. You're avoidant. That's great. That's great, right? Like, that's fine, especially if you can see that. I love cats too. I love cats. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, so sexuality, so much embodiment is about the inner marriage. We all know it. We all know it. We have the divine masculine, we have the divine feminine. How are we in balance, right? We all know this. I'm sure we've explored this deeply, but have you married yourself? Would you want to marry yourself? Do you want to marry yourself? Because if you don't, you better work on that. Okay? Right. Like, hell yeah. Let's get married. All right. Inner marriage, the inner union. Sexuality is also, so much about boundaries and self-knowledge. Do we know what we want? Do we know our desire? Do we know what we're okay with? Do we know what we're not okay with? Do we know what we're exploring? Like, understanding that. And then really approaching it with non-attachment too. Because as soon as we attach and our egos get involved, then things will become messy. Projection, fantasy, etc., especially in sexuality and romantic relationships. So then taking that, what is sacred? What is really sacred? And how am I consciously relating? Right? What's my communication around sexuality? And again, have compassion for yourself. Maybe you're not perfect at it. Maybe you feel uncomfortable, right? Take Brian's advice. Seek the discomfort. Go articulate something. Go tell your boyfriend how much you've been fantasizing about X. See what happens. Speak your truth, right? Seek discomfort. And then finally in sexuality, it's like after you get all through that, right? Now, there we go. Elizabeth, you know what? Is that with a cat? Is the partner a cat? Because I thought you avoided everything. No, it's your lover. Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's so important to talk about fantasy. It's such a turn on, right? It's like, come on, if we can just sit there and be non-attached to fantasy and just talk, it's amazing. Just don't take it personally. Cat's crying, Sorry, I'm articulating this chat too. Okay, so last thing, sexuality, embodiment, right? Polarity. Okay, you're in balance, great. You're a woman, great. Embody the feminine, right? And you're a man, great. Embody the masculine. What does that look like? A lot of men are focusing right now in this current time on incorporating the healthy masculine, but they're doing that by being more feminine, right? And kind of conversely, women have had to show up in the patriarchy And they're refocusing on surrendering, allowance, right? Collectively, this is what's going on. Women are spending time coming back to themselves, and men are spending time coming back to themselves through being more feminine. And this will continue. And then once those two things are in balance, oh my God, all of society is going to change. Yeah, all relationships are going to change. Okay, so I only have a few more minutes, but I want to talk about creating new earth. And these are the main takeaways for creating new earth. We've embodied our sovereignty. We're aware of every single impact that we have on our reality. First things. Yes, Narissa, do you have a question?
I was just gonna type that I could ask it later, but it was about sexuality.
Yeah, sure.
Ask it now or after?
Hit it.
Okay. So I've been having some thoughts about doing more Kundalini practice,
Hmm.
and then like the different, like yesterday we learned Tantra and things like that. And so I was like, you know what? Like you can literally like feel these ecstatic states just through these different types of practices and things like that, like breath and everything.
Absolutely.
And so then it was making me think about sex with a partner. And I'm like, I feel like that is like literally for manifestation. Like
Hmm.
the more that I've been learning about sacred sex, I'm just like, I feel like it's just like, and you're talking about sovereignty and the last talk, and I'm just like, I feel like this is just so much more of like an additional thing that's like, it makes me feel empowered because it makes me feel like it's like a choice, and it's like alchemy, like fucking alchemy. And it's like, I don't know, it kind of takes the pressure off because I think sometimes we go through this thing, especially in our 20s, where we're like, oh, like if we're not having sex, there's something wrong with us, or like da 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 da. And it's like now it's like that can just be a choice that's like an additional like fun thing. It doesn't
Hmm.
the thing that like, oh, if it's been 3 months and something's wrong with me or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful. I think accepting yourself for where you are in whatever portion of your sexuality, that is so important. And to not have judgment, right? To observe where you're at and not judge yourself. But that doesn't mean you don't take responsibility for where you're at, right? And how you're using sexuality. I definitely agree. Tantric alchemy, Taoist alchemy, super important. Microcosmic orbit. I missed the Tantra talk, so I don't know if that was discussed, but
Well,
super,
it
super powerful.
we kind of learned self-pleasure through that. So what I'm saying is like now I feel like I'm learning these practices to reach these ecstatic states that are like similar to in like a sexual experience.
Mhm.
So like I'm just seeing it as like that element is like a choice.
Mhm.
Whereas before it was like, oh, you're dating someone, like you gotta have, like you can't go more than 4 weeks, or
Mhm.
you have to have sex and things like that. So yeah.
Well, thank you for that. I definitely think that it is so intimately related. When you are embodied in your power and you are meeting someone embodied in their power and in their sovereignty, you're going to have absolute, like, pure power creation. Yeah, that is alchemy supreme. So thank you for bringing that to everyone. Okay, creating new earth. I only have like 5 minutes, so I'm going to do this in 5 sections, 1 minute each. All right, the first thing is reorientation of time. Okay, time. What is your relationship with time? What calendars are you following? Right? Are you following a lunar calendar? My advice, follow a lunar calendar. I don't care if it's Vedic or if it's Taoist or if it's Mayan, whatever it is. Lunar calendar, 13 months. Right? This is very important. The Gregorian calendar has definitely shifted the way our brains and our bodies are frequency bands that we're channeling in this earth. What's your relationship with time? Does it feel linear? Does it feel cyclical? Right? Think about this. This is a huge piece about creation. I've been studying the Mayan calendar for 13 years. I have created and traveled all over the world, and I have done significant things in terms of business and in terms of impact on lives. And it's because so significantly about an orientation towards time. So really evaluate that for yourselves. Take that away. The second is reorientation and the relationship towards the earth and the stars. What is our relationship to the earth? What is our relationship to the stars? Are we looking at Vedic or tropical astrology? Do we care that that's different? Are we working with the earth? Are we growing food? Are we cultivating flowers? Are we spending time in the jungle? Are we spending time on the mountains, right? What is your relationship to earth? The more connected you are to Gaia, the more connected you are to the stars, right? The more powerful the channel will be that you are creating from. So really evaluate that for yourselves. You know, I like to say in this section, I wanted to say, ancient is the future. Ancient is the future. We are going back to ancient wisdom, this indigenous wisdom of being so close to Gaia, so close to the stars. So really analyze that for yourselves. The next is your relationship and an orientation about presence, right? Presence. How am I being mindful? Am I practicing Tantra? Am I practicing yoga? Am I practicing meditation? How am I cultivating my presence or my ability to be present? Take stock of that. Write that down. Look at it. Right? Okay, and then the last piece of this is how we think about manifestation, okay? I know there's been multiple manifestation talks. I think there's a lot of people that understand Manipura and the solar plexus and how we emanate this, right? You have quantum manifestation. Some people study Hermeticism. Some people study mysticism or Kabbalistic mysticism. Some people do invocation and prayer, right? What is our relationship to manifestation? And right now, from my opinion, and I have a very, very lucky situation in that I'm in Hawaii, but the veil is very thin now. If you saw Levi's talk, you know, this is the year, a lot of Aquarius energy, the veil is very thin. Things are happening very fast. We are manifesting very quickly. And it is directly related to how we're showing up for ourselves and embodying our sovereignty. If you believe, if you know, if you put the intention forward that something is meant for you, it will show up in your world without a doubt. But how does it show up, right? There's different forms. And my point in this is figure out what works for you, right? Maybe it's this idea of quantum and embodiment and the law of attraction. Maybe it's Hermeticism. Maybe it's mysticism. Maybe it's, you know, 1, 2, 3 linear steps, like whatever it looks like for you, just own your reality of your relationship to manifestation. And that is everything that I prepared. I am so, so thankful. I'm going to look at the chat here and then I will take maybe 1 or 2 questions. Chelsea, it's up to you. What do you think?
Totally. Yes. I definitely think we're all just like bursting with questions.
Thank you. Thank you guys. Yeah, just pop some things in the chat, or if someone wants to raise their hand and come on, I would love to hear from you. Jennifer, thank you so much. I'm glad it was insightful. I hope everyone has some takeaways.
I think something that if you could put the link to that community that you have, I think a lot of people are really wanting to see that. Oh, perfect. Oh, thanks, tech team. You guys are the best. Perfect.
Yeah, so Kanekoa is really brand new. I just started it in December, so it's going to evolve, but a lot of really cool things are going to be happening. It's really sensitive in Hawaii with COVID and the state of the world. So the gatherings are kind of going to be a little bit covert, unfortunately, but for now we're really putting some solid foundation down. We've been doing a lot of traditional Ava ceremony, a lot of tea leaves and weaving, some of the traditional Hawaiian practices, some of the mysticism, the fern medicine. Pohala Keone, he's a very dear friend of mine. Pohala Botanicals, follow him on Instagram. Also, Kale is an amazing brother, Hawaiian brother of mine, working with like all of the traditions in Hawaii. So we're bringing this to the mainstream, and we're doing it in a way that honors the indigenous wisdom. Elizabeth, thank you so much. Your chosen word was sovereignty. Awesome. Awesome. And I didn't disappoint you. Good. I'm glad. That means you didn't have any expectation. Perfect.
So good. I think we have a question from Gigi, and then we also have one from Jessica.
Gigi. Hi, Gigi.
Hi, sorry, I had to unplug my my earphones because they just automatically go off when I start speaking. So I had a question on that last part because I was writing everything down really fast. So it was saying, you were saying about how you think about manifestation, and it directly relates to how you show up in the world and how you have to see what works for you. What were the different methods you were speaking about? Because I just lost everything when it happened to that.
I had planned on having a little more time there, so I appreciate the question and the opportunity to revisit. So I had just written a few different modalities or methods. I think a lot of people know the law of attraction, right? And so that is really vibrating as if you have achieved it, as if you have achieved something, and really being that state, because once you're in that state, it magnetizes, right? And I know there was a manifestation with magnetism. I'm sure she kind of talked about some of that, but I missed that. The other one I mentioned is Hermeticism. And this is kind of Hermes Trismegistus, otherwise known as Thoth. And if you guys are Atlantean, Lemurian star seeds, you know that could be a thing. But Hermeticism is actually very, very practical. 7 steps, very, very practical. And it's a certain methodology though, right? And we have to analyze what's our relationship to that methodology. Another one I mentioned is invocation and prayer, and really enunciating the magic. In Hawaiian, we say olelo. Olelo is our language, and our language directly shapes our reality. So what you speak becomes manifest. And maybe that works for you, right? Maybe your words are that palpable to you, how you're impacting people. So really enunciating and calling it in. Affirmations is kind of a similar kind of framework, right? Knowing that your language is shaping it. And then the last one I had was just different forms of mysticism, but also like the Kabbalistic mysticism in particular. So that is the tree of life. And you can, if you feel, if that resonates with you, then it's something that you can incorporate in how you are creating magic and then bringing things into the reality. Does that answer your question, Gigi?
Yes, thank you.
Cool.
So good. I love that. Jessica mentioned that you had a poem on time, a spoken word. Would you like to share that poem?
I feel like we're a little bit over. I could. I feel really actually complete, and I'm really thankful. And I'll drop a few things in the note in the tech here or in the chat. And yeah, thank you guys for just receiving me and providing this container, Chelsea, Jessica, all of Emergence. I would love to just can everyone come off of mute and give us all an ashta hey and some spirit fingers?
Yeah.
Ashta hey.
Ashta hey.
Thank you, Ashta hey. Oh, Frank, that was amazing. Thank you. That was you're filled with so much wisdom, so much knowledge.
Yeah, I thought it started at 6:30.
I'm glad somebody said something about a secret meeting. I think that's coming.
And on that note, it's so good. Amazing. So Frank, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for being a part of this. And I'd love to drop your handles in the chat. We've got your community link here. I'm sure a lot of people want to follow up with you. I'm sure there's so many more questions. I encourage you to go into his Instagram DMs and message him. That's probably a great way to get in contact. Frank, if you're cool with that.
Yes.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. That's awesome. Actually, you might want to type, what's your Instagram hand? Oh, there we go. We got it. Perfect.
Perfect.
Awesome. So we'll reconnect there. So we are now going to be shifting into our last talk of the entire festival before our closing ceremony, because we do have a closing ceremony that's very special, and I would love to just